Before fingerprinting was used for crime detection and personal identification in the late 1800s, there was the anthropometric system. The anthropometric system was a series of measurements of the individual's body, including their height, their weight, their skin fold thickness, and their circumference of their waist, their hip, and their chest. Then, in 1858, William Herschel started to experiment with fingerprints. In 1877, he required his clients to sign documents with fingerprints to prevent forgery. In 1886, Henry Fauld suggested to the Scotland Yard in his article Nature, where he discussed personal identification and that the use of ink could make fingerprints visible, or latent, but his suggestion was not approved. But then, in India, in 1893, law enforcement authorities added thumbprints to the anthropometric system, creating a hybrid of both systems. Although Henry's partner did most of the work on the identification system for the fingerprints, in 1897, Fauld was claimed to have invented the first fingerprint identification, which was then called the Henry classification system, taking no account to his partner. London approved the system in 1901. In 1903, the New York Police Department and the state prison adopted this system and started to use it after the system started spreading around the United States of America. In 1904, the FBI, or U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, started a fingerprint collection. It was important for them to have a fingerprint collection because they had to compare the fingerprints of suspects to the fingerprint that was in the crime scene. Here are some examples of present-day cases that the fingerprint has either gone wrong or helped solve the case. Stephen Cohens of Boston was convicted in 1998 of shooting a police. He was found guilty because of a fingerprint found on a cup in the crime scene. In January 2004, after the new DNA evidence raised doubts about Cohen's guilt, authorities re-examined the print lifted from the cup and found that his fingerprint analysis had misidentified it as belonging to Cohen's. He was freed after 6.5 years in prison. In this present-day case, the fingerprint was not examined close enough, and the wrong person was found guilty and punished. DNA is a more exact process of identification. Even though fingerprints are not always as accurate as DNA, there are more cases where the fingerprint led right to the criminal, like this one. A pizza man had been arrested once for robbery. When he got out of jail, he was found guilty of a second crime because of a fingerprint found at the crime scene. They matched this up with the one he had been fingerprinted for when he robbed the bank, and it was a perfect match. The fingerprint led right to him and solved the case immediately. In Mark Twain's books, Pudd'nhead Wilson, written in 1883, and Life on the Mississippi, written in 1894, he introduced fingerprinting to regular people by writing about it. He was the first person to use fingerprinting as the main part of the plot in a fictional book. In the 1800s, people such as Charles Darwin were trying to prove that you inherited fingerprinting just like you inherited other traits from your parents. They also thought that fingerprints should be dependent on race. However, none of these ideas were true. Unlike most of criminal justice, fingerprinting is one of the first ideas that does not depend on race or inheritance.